Hello, folks. I am back with a firearms review of my Sig Sauer MPX Copperhead, and I did go to the firing range and was able to fire this. I did give an impressions video prior, so I just wanted to know how it shoots at the range. Unfortunately, I did try to film this, but I had an issue because it was very hard for me to hold this with one hand and use my cell phone with the other hand. So that didn't work out. So I just deleted that filming, and I will have to probably get somebody to help me out in the future, whether it's a GoPro camera or whether somebody's going to stand there and film this for me. I want to tell you something. This firearm is very, very, very accurate for its size, being at a 3.5-inch barrel. Let me let you know about a couple things that people might have had a concern with. Let's start with, that I've mentioned in the other video that this firearm is supposedly ambidextrous, and it is for the most part. One of the big concerns was the safety here on the left-hand side and the safety on the right side. Now, a lot of people that had CZ Scorpions basically had the issue of the safety here digging into their finger when they're shooting, especially when they have it in this position, and the safety would dig in and hit the knuckle and so forth. And that was a really big issue for some people and then a lot of people have replaced their safeties. If you're right-handed, on the right-hand side, they replaced them with the aftermarket products that are out there, whether it's Apex or SB Tactical or whoever. So they replaced those. Well, that was a bit of a concern for me on this firearm. And as I was firing and shooting, and with my hand placement, whether it be on this side or whether it be on the side here, on the right-hand side, which I am right-handed, that I was wondering if that would be an issue. And I'm going to tell you, it was not an issue at all. I did not feel anything. It didn't come close to it. And I think it has to do in part with this, with the grip here. Now, the grip here is basically, I know for some people it's a funky looking grip, but this grip here really contours it where your hand won't push your knuckle into the safety lever, like as in with the Scorpion, CZ Scorpion, where it had the exaggerated angle. Then it pushed people's hands up into that safety area. So that was a moot point at that point. Another thing about this being a totally ambidextrous firearm is basically the magazine release. Now, those of you who have AR-15s know that the magazine release is on the right-hand side, and you usually use your forefinger just to depress the magazine release, and your magazine would come out. And that is true for the most part on this. But what was different was having a magazine release on the left-hand side, where you would just press your magazine release. For me, it would be the support hand thumb, and then you would just do that, and then your magazine would come out. And they work perfectly both ways. Now, if there was a left-hander, I guess they would use their forefinger here. So the magazine release work very well on both sides. It's not like other firearms on the market, where other firearms on the market, they'll have like a right-handed mag release just to appease the left-handers, and it really didn't work that well because they have it there and it's pretty much not working. It's there to appease them, but it doesn't really work. So I can say that mag releases on both sides are functional. Another thing that I was interested in was basically the bolt release. Now, the bolt release, this is on the traditional side of the left-hand side, like an AR-15, and it looks pretty much traditional. You just hit your bolt release and your bolt goes forward to cycle around. Now, on the right-hand side, this is your bolt release. Now, this bolt release, of course, does not look like your traditional bolt release. Once you rack the bolt release back and you move your charging handle forward, all you have to do is hit this bolt release and the bolt will go forward and charging around. But the one difference with this particular side is on like a regular AR-15, when you rack your charging handle, you're usually simultaneously are holding your bolt release to lock it back, and then you could slide your charging handle forward. Now, that feature will only work on this side traditionally like an AR-15, but it will not work on this side. I attempted it a couple times, and it does not work on that side. So that's the only thing that would probably be different, but still, all in all, this is a functional bolt release. Now, I'm not going to break this down. I'm just going to tell you a few things about it because it is a little tough to break down for the camera here. I'm going to attempt it for something else. Now, the barrel with the muzzle here, like I said, this is a very accurate barrel at 3.5 inches, and they intentionally made it look like this so they can have this where it can be quickly deployed, and that's why Sig Sauer did this way. I have no problems with this, but people that are going to use this as a suppressor or want to use a suppressor on this particular firearm, this will come out. This barrel will come out. When you break it down and use these two support screws, you're able to take this entire section out here and replace it with the MPX K barrels, which have basically a muzzle device, so you'll be able to replace it whether you want to use different type of muzzle brakes or whether you want to put a suppressor on. So that's a pretty unique feature. And I'm going to pause the camera for a moment because I want to talk about the trigger. Okay, I started this so I would be able to not waste time, and it's a little bit tough to do. What you have to do is when you take this apart, you have to squeeze and then push the pin out. And that way you'll be able to open it this way. And some of you may know on a regular AR-15 that usually from this end to that end, there's normally what they call a buffer tube. And this is that little piece there. This little piece here is the tiny buffer tube, if you will. But as you know, buffer tubes usually have some type of spring that goes inside the buffer tube. Now, on this particular firearm, it's not set up like that. It does have, and I'm not going to pull this out because it was pretty much a bear to get into. I'm going to try to angle it. But if you look underneath, if I can get the proper lighting, under here there's two springs here which act as like a recoil spring. So that takes pretty much the brunt of the recoil. So even though there is no buffer tube, as the bolt cycles back, it's using those two internal springs that allows the bolt carrier to move backwards and forwards. What I wanted to also show you inside here, this is your trigger assembly in here. I'm going to take the magazine out. I should have done that earlier, and that way you'll get to see certain things. I should have done that. And here we go. Under here, this is your trigger assembly. Now, I find this trigger assembly very unique in what Sig has done. Now, let me see if I can get my camera to hold steady. All right, now under this, where this trigger assembly is, there is a trigger block right here. So as this, like I said, because this is a different scale. It's based off of a AR-15, but it's on a different scale because it's smaller and so forth, and it's holding a 9mm round. This is your hammer right here. As you see, the hammer. What it does is when this hammer comes back, there is a block right here. Now that block is where the hammer goes and it hits right here. So doing rapid fire, like if you're shooting or slow or rapid, this trigger block inside here will protect the other internals of the trigger housing. So that's why this block is here. So when it comes back during recoil, it'll prevent further damage and extend the life of the internals of your trigger assembly. Now, one thing about this trigger assembly, you do have to be very careful if you're deciding to upgrade this trigger. Now, this is compatible with some AR aftermarket triggers, whether you're using a Geisley trigger or whether you're using anything like a Wilson Combat trigger, but you have to read your manual very, very, very carefully, because you will definitely, and it says in the manual that you would definitely void your warranty by putting a trigger assembly in here. So those of you who are skilled with that, have at it. I'm not skilled with it. I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to cause any issues with this. But I like the way it works fine. The trigger, to me, from what I read, was either the 4 to 5 pound, maybe 6. But this trigger works perfectly for this size firearm. It actually feels better than some regular pistols, like your regular striker fire pistols. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. And this is a close-up inside the manual. This is a card that they give you, and it talks about trigger compatibility. This is that block that they're talking about, how when the hammer comes down, and they recommend that this should not be removed. This is a very important piece here. Those of you who have MPXs know what I'm talking about. So that's the information for here. But you guys who are adept to it, you can and know what you're doing, that's perfectly fine. I just want to right now show you what those recoil springs are, what they look like a little bit. So these are the two springs that I was talking about earlier. When the bolt comes back, and this is attached to the bolt. I don't want to pull that out because it's a pain in the neck to get in. And of course, those of you who have AR-15s know that your charging handle is right above your bolt carrier, and it allows you to pull the bolt back when you want to charge the first round. But I wanted people to see how this system is made, since it's not made totally traditionally like an AR-15. Okay, now that everything is back together, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Romeo 1, excuse me, not the Romeo 1, Romeo 5. The Romeo 5 optic is a very good optic, is very accurate. And this is really a tough optic. It's a very, very tough optic. I'm really surprised at it. It's here you see with your plus and minus on here. It's your plus and your minus. That's to increase the intensity of the light. I usually like to keep mine at a pin, not too thick, because I like it a little thinner for those accuracy shots. Now, right here, this is obviously for windage. You can use these caps right here, and I'm unscrewing the caps. You can use these caps as actually a screwdriver. You basically, if I could find it right here, these little, if my camera will cooperate, this little space here, if I could get it focused in, turns the turrets right here, and they fit into the space here. And it's also a good protector, so you won't lose your lose what you zeroed out on. So that's a really good thing that they did. And actually, it is pretty much like a copy of the Vortex Crossfire. Now, I had the Vortex Crossfire on my CZ Scorpion, so it's pretty much a copy of that. It does have a riser, and as you see, the riser can allow you to co-witness if you need to, if you have let's say sights that are on here like they do on the CZ Scorpion. By the way, this does not come with any sights, so you might can add that on here. But like I said, Sig intentionally did that because they wanted this to be as streamlined as possible and non-snagging. But you can buy aftermarket sights. Some people use the Magpul Imbus sites, and so they can co-witness with that with the Optic, whether just in case the Optic goes down and they want to use a backup site. Now, what's unique about this particular site, it does come with, of course, your cleaning cloth and all that. But if you don't like this particular riser that's on there, you can put the low mount riser on there, and the low mount riser will drop this to a lower height, which would be parallel to it. So your riser would be pretty much sticking up like that, and the Optic would sit a little lower. So this Optic is very good. It is extremely comparable with the Vortex Crossfire. I don't know how true it is, but I think Holosun might have something to do with this particular Optic for Sig. But I thought this was really from Sig's Electro-Optics division. So I thought they were making their own. That was just a rumor, so don't quote me on that. But as far as I'm concerned, they are made from Sig's Electro-Optic division. And this, like I said, the site is very good, is very crisp and clear. And I always make reference to this other YouTuber. They're called Alabama Arsenal. Alabama Arsenal seems to do some cutting edge things. And the first time I've watched one of their videos, they actually shot a VP9 SK with a shotgun twice. Well, in this case, Alabama Arsenal took this exact Optic, they froze it, they threw it up in the air, they did all kinds of torturing with this, and one of the last things that they did was they shot it with a shotgun, and yes, the Optic was still operable, and it did hold 0. Now you want to know, how did it shoot? How well did it do? So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to show you a few targets so you'll know how accurate this is, because I'm really happy with this accuracy, especially for a small firearm like this. Okay, let's start with my first targets. My first targets, actually, when I pulled the Optic out and put that onto the Copperhead, and and installed it, it shot low. It shot right here. I did some adjusting and some fine tuning. The shots came in right about here, and I love shooting around the 9 ring or the 8 ring. This is at 7 yards, by the way. And again, I did some more firing. That's my mistake right there. Still trying to zero it in. This is another shot. I moved this now to about 10 yards, I believe. And this became a tack driver at this point. This is from a 3.5-inch barrel, and I love the way this basically shot. This was my fault. I was adjusting my grip, and unfortunately, when I was adjusting my grip, I did something wrong. I had my finger on the trigger, but luckily I was pointing the firearm downrange. So it's always important to have your firearm pointing downrange, and that's the shot that was there. Then I did some headshots over here, and again, it was doing some tack driving there. Now I moved it out even further. This is about 15 yards, somewhere at 15 yards max. I was trying to zero it in like on the previous target. This is the best I could do. And there are my headshots right here at 15 yards. I'm just going to say that the combination between this firearm and the Optic on there, it's outstanding. I am very surprised that this firearm can do all that, being the size that it is. Now, the CZ Scorpion does exactly the same thing. Now, unfortunately, the CZ Micro is not out yet. It's the same size as it's the same as the Scorpion, but it is supposed to be in the size of the Sig Sauer Scorpion. And that's the competitive portion that they are. I think they're around the same MSRP, so yeah, you're going to be paying a little bit. This is actually the cheapest of the MPX line for Sig, but when you compare the price that from what I see so far retail between that and this Sig Sauer Scorpion, the CZ Scorpion Micro, they are roughly about the same price. Again, my only complaint is you only get one 20-round magazine with this. I did order two 30-round magazines from Sig, and hopefully they will come in. I have nothing bad to say about this firearm. The only malfunctions I had were roughly about 4, and it's because of the ammo. And I was shooting another firearm with that same ammo, and it had the same issue. Once I switched over to Blazer Brass, there were no malfunctions in this whatsoever. So I attribute those malfunctions to be from the ammo itself, not the firearm. Is this a gimmick? They talked about gimmick guns the other night or Three Guys Gun Chat. I'm not going to say this is a gimmick per se. It is a good firearm to play with at the range, but it may have its applications maybe with law enforcement for ultra concealed carry of a submachine gun or something of that nature. But other than that, this firearm is a very good firearm. If you want something a little smaller and don't mind the price tag on it, this is the way to go. So that's all I have for now, right now, folks. Happy shooting. #2A.